I've been underrated and overrated my entire career. It's the dumbest thing in wrestling, right? Like, literally every year of my career, there's a bunch of people that say he's criminally underrated, and then there'll be someone, he's so overrated. It's like, no, do you like him? You like him or don't like him? Like, that's it.
Well, thank you for bringing this with you.
Hey, no problem. I understand that's part of the act. That's what people want to see.
But they want to see you as well.
Sure.
Yes, but you've had this for so long.
Yeah.
That you guys are, merged here.
Yeah. Just having this conversation with someone downstairs, there's just you reach that point where you're, if when part of your act is sort of you're known as being the world champion, and it's like it's good, but it's also more pressure, because then it's kind of like, all right, what about when you're not?
Yeah.
But I always felt like that about Bret Hart. Like, he was my hero, and it's like, but even when he wasn't the champion, it was kind of like, you feel like, well, he's the champion,
Right.
That's how I always felt about Bret,
Well, I think with this new era of NWA, like, you are synonymous with this championship.
Yeah. And that's what should be the goal, I feel like, of everyone in their promotion. They should want to be the franchise player of their promotion.
Yeah.
Because then it's like you've done everything you can do now as an individual.
Yeah.
So now you're going to try to lift the rest of the business and the brand and everybody around you. And it's like, man, last night the pay-per-view we closed the show with the finals of the TV title tournament with Ricky Starks and Trevor Murdoch, and it's like those two guys who we knew because of the work that they've all done, and everyone on the team has done and the way the audience responded to those two guys, we knew that final they could carry it,
right.
Even after being out there two more times.
Yeah.
And it all started with this, it all started here, and that's a cool feeling, very gratifying.
So Billy Corgan bought the NWA in 2017.
Yeah.
At what point did you start getting involved in conversations?
Quite early on. I mean, summer of 2017, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Because Mickie and I were in the process of house hunting or moving. I forget, one or the other. But we were. I just remember we were in a hotel because we were looking for somewhere new to live, and not like, but just for the weekend. We had sort of gone there just while we were doing the last bit of stuff, and Dave called me, and Dave Lagana, and just kind of said, "What's going on with you? Like what are you doing? Because I'd just like fallen off the face of the earth in wrestling. I just been like there, because everyone just assumed that I would go to WWE like after I finished up with TNA.
Yeah.
That didn't happen, and it was like I did some stuff with Jeff with Global Force and like whatever, and that kind of fizzled out, and I was just bouncing around like on the independents. Me and Mickie both were, and it was like then she got the opportunity to go back, and she did the NXT match with Asuka, crushed it. Vince is like, bring her back full time, So then we kind of go, oh, well, that changes everything. And Dave was, I think he was sort of in the same position as a lot of people, where they was going, like, what is he? Have you quit the business? What are you doing? Like why are you not in WWE? And what else are you doing? Like, what's the deal? And I just very candidly told him that for whatever reason there seems to be some sort of problem with WWE, and I just didn't really fit in anywhere else. Like there was this sort of new, like this new style had like taken such a hold on everything. Like this, celebrating this very sort of high impact, fast paced, kind of high spot style. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it was kind of like, that was where everybody was leaning that way. So of course nobody was really thinking, oh, let's have a guy like that. And so it was just one of those things. You have hot and cold periods, and I just was, I was cold, and I just went, I don't know. Like I just said, there's just nothing really. Nothing's grabbing me.
Yeah.
There's nothing and if I don't have passion for it, like I can't commit. And then he basically said, Billy bought the NWA. I said, yeah, I know. I remember seeing the headline and thinking, The thing that most surprised me about it was the fact that I had kept sort of half an eye on all the drama with TNA with him, with Impact. And like, all I could think of was, geez, like he's like just jumping right back in, after all of that debacle, and
right?
Like millions of dollars, and and just sort of all the stress and everything. And I thought, now he's bought the NWA, and I just remember thinking, all right, I wonder what he's going to do with that. And I didn't really give it another thought. And then they've started explaining what their philosophy was and their vision for what they wanted to achieve, and explained Billy's vision for, the things he missed in wrestling. Because I have to explain, when Billy came to Impact, literally his first day on the job was my last day.
Oh, wow.
So we kind of, we hey, how you doing? Introduced. He helped produce this one last thing I was in, and then it was kind of like, all right, bye.
Wow.
So it was like, there'd been this very, very brief sort of professional interaction, and I described to Dave what I felt was missing in the industry, what I wanted to see more of in the industry, and the stuff that grabbed me as a fan. And I basically said, look, I'm a boxing fan, but I'm not a boxing aficionado. I love boxing, but I'm not gonna watch two jabrones fight for no reason. Like, I need to be invested, right? So it's like Canelo Triple G was that year, like obviously Mayweather McGregor, and they'd just done a fabulous job, like a once in a lifetime type of thing. And I go, what happened to the prize fight feel?
Yeah.
Like, what happened to the prize fight approach to promoting? I was like, Vince McMahon was the greatest promoter of all time, but now he's like an executive producer of this giant sort of Nickelodeon wrestling. You know what I mean? And that's nothing against them. Like, they're an incredible business model, but the promoter element has kind of gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there isn't that kind of, this is the match. Like, it's like there's another pay-per-view 2 weeks from now, and it's too much. Like, everything's just kind of, it's a machine, and that's, and again, I can't say I would do anything differently because they're making money hand over fist.
Sure.
But it left, to me, a gap in the market for, okay, so they're kind of doing their thing of like McDonald's, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to be in every corner of the globe, and you're going to know what you're getting, you know what I mean? It's like, it's reliable, it's there, it's the brand. And then you've got like this, New Japan and then, the fledgling sort of promotions, and then there's Ring of Honor at the time, and they're kind of offering that hipster wrestling, like that kind of like niche thing, right? Like, where it's kind of like the cool kids wrestling. And I went, I think there's a bunch of people that miss like the classic, like, irresistible force, immovable object. Here's the showdown. Who's going to win? Like, and who's going to be the world champion? And we just, like, I got off the phone with Dave, and he goes, all right, well, let me talk to Billy, and blah blah blah. Billy called me 2 minutes later, and was just like, just gushing about like Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher, and like, oh, I want a bunch of big raw bone men, and I want like this, and I want that, and I want like this, I want to have this feeling, I want atmosphere, and this, and I was like, right, you're speaking my language. We can absolutely do that. And between us all, we formed what eventually became the 10 Pounds of Gold series, because it was like, well, what can we do now? We don't have a ring, we don't have a roster, we don't have I think we have a brand. We have like, you bought this intellectual property, and you have me, and we have Tim Storm, and it was like, what a gem, like, I remember Dave saying to me, current champion's this guy called Tim Storm, and he's like, he ain't Ricky Steamboat, but just let me know what you know what I mean. He's like, just there's something about this guy, right? Yeah. And they show me this interview they did with Tim in the classroom because he's a teacher. Yeah. And I just went, like that, because the promoter in me, like, that's how I look at everything, right? Like, I look at an opponent. I don't look at somebody and think like, oh yeah, he's good. Like, I immediately think like, can I make money with him? because that's how I was taught. Like that's like the guys that I sat under the learning tree of, like Kevin Nash and Sting and, you know, Mick Foley and Kurt, like they said, you know, just, can you make money with someone?
Right.
You know, and I remember just looking and thinking, immediately I just went, the whole story is just right there. Like, here's this honest to goodness, like, you know, Texas good old boy. He's a school teacher. He's like the most likable human you could ever meet. He's just, you know, but he's also a big, imposing, raw-boned man, you know, like a real red-blooded male.
Right. And
then you've got this guy in his early 30s. You know, he's had lots of opportunities. He's, you know, he's a lot, in a lot of people's eyes, is this sort of typical example of, like, you know, the blue chipper, pro wrestler, you know, like this, you know, like, and it's like, and I've got a little bit of a chip on my shoulder based on the sort of, you know, the trajectory of my career over the last couple of years, and he's just like, hey man, this is my mountaintop, like this is the, you know, and it was just, and there's me basically declaring like, I'm coming for that, you know, and it's this kind of like, oh wait, no, don't take it from him, you know, and it just, it spawned everything, because people just kind of went, you seen this? Like, we felt every day we would feel just a little bit more, just industry people and fans saying, yeah, man, that 10 pounds of gold thing is kind of, you know, that caught me off guard. It was interesting, you know, and it's, I'm so proud of those. Like, you know, go back and this is interesting, because I basically had a bunch of bookings. I had a bunch of independent bookings, you know, set. So when we kind of said, okay, we sort of roughly laid out like what we were going to do, I just said, well, look, I've got all these bookings already in place, because I'd started doing some stuff with Tommy Dreamer for House of Hardcore, and Tommy deserves some credit, actually, because right around the same time, he had the same conversation with me where he went like, why the hell is nobody tapping into you? Like, what a you know what I mean? He's kind of going like, what the hell? Like, why are you just sitting on the shelf, right? Like, and he was like, can you come and do some stuff at House of Hardcore? He's like, you know, I went and found James, who did Marty's original villain vignettes, and I sat down with him and we did some interview stuff. We did some villain vignettes where I just candidly spoke about, like, I don't fit in anywhere, you know. And then I went and I said, you know, I've been underrated and overrated my entire career. It's the dumbest thing in wrestling, right? Like, literally every year of my career, there's a bunch of people that say he's criminally underrated, and then there'll be someone, he's so overrated. You know, it's like, well, do you like him? You like him or don't like him? Like, that's it. But like, I did this promo with James, and I went, fitting in is overrated. And it became like this little thing, and we were playing those vignettes on House of Hardcore, and that coincided with the NWA stuff. So then, like, we sort of married the two, and that really that was like the whole thing. And then I said, look, we've got an opportunity here organically to recreate the traveling champion thing, because I've got these bookings in Australia, I've got these bookings here, I've got you know, all over the country and in Europe. And so we were able to, within the space of 1 year, you know, defended the title on 4 different continents, and it was like, and by then it was, you could just feel everybody kind of going, that's cool, you know, like retro cool.
And were you getting booked, or was the championship getting booked?
Well, originally these were existing bookings, right? So basically what happened was, the 10 Pounds of Gold series started coming out, you know, and after about 3 or 4 episodes, people started going like, hey, this is pretty cool. Like, and so then when I won the championship, they did the surprise thing at CZW and everything. All of these promoters that I was booked for, I had bookings through like the next sort of 5 or 6 months, and they all, within the space of like 48 hours, like, hey, can we make this an NWA championship match now? Like, this is so cool, you know, like, hey, would Dave, you know, would he come and film, like, you know, can we be part of like the 10 Pounds of Gold series and blah, blah, blah. So we started sort of making these deals with these. We're basically like, hey, you know, if you cover the expenses for Dave to come along, and, you know, and we bootstrapped it. Like, Dave and I have traveled all over the world together. You know, like, I wrestled in a building in Belfast that was like below freezing. You know, we like went, you know, to China, Australia, like all over the place. And he's been with me like with his camera, getting all this stuff and making these pieces and just in real time.
That's great.
And then, obviously as time progressed, we caught the attention of Cody, and we just used everything as like, okay, what can help the overall growth of the NWA and in turn me.
And I think that All In was a really big platform.
100%.
That was an incredible match with you and Cody, but that was a great platform for this championship.
Sure. It became the sort of the punctuation point of this, that first year, because it was like to be able to look back and think by, we literally started doing the 10 pounds of gold stuff around September of 17. And then September 18, it's like 10,000. And if you can go back and find, I don't know which episode, but there's one of the very early ones where I said I'm visualizing defending this in a full arena, in a sold out building. You have to.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. You have to believe, and I'm not talking about like spiritual, mumbo jumbo. I mean, like, you've got to have 100% conviction and the courage enough to speak it and put it out there into the energy to say, I'm going to take this from where it was to I'm going to make this feel like the real world championship again. And so to then get to Cody and I and that, no, for fans, I understand that the finish was the moment, for them. But for me, the opening bell was the moment. Yeah. That was my win.
The rest of us were all crying at the end.
Sure, because at the beginning, Earl does the instructions, rings the bell, and the whole place just stands, and just starts rumbling. And it's like you can't force that. You can't create it. It just has to happen. And it's like that was the big win for me as the protagonist.
Yeah.
Antagonist, sorry.
Yes.
I'm the protagonist in the 10 pounds, most of the time in the 10 pounds of gold story, but in that was the antagonist.
You mentioned it earlier. Why didn't things work out with WWE?
I don't know. I honestly, it's like...
Your wife works there. It seems like it would make sense.
Yeah, that's almost like, that's almost kind of more of a problem. Like, because... Then I'm looking at it then thinking, well, is this a favor, or is this or then it just becomes, oh well, that's just an extra complication we don't want to have to worry about. The reality is, Chris, that there's somebody there who is very, very successful, who, for whatever reason decided that he didn't want to have anything to do with me, because of some of his actions on a personal level. And I just, it's one of those weird things. They can't, there's no way to address it. And I've had conversations with him over the years, and I honestly got to a point where I just went, I'm done chasing that dragon, it's ultimately, what's my vision here? Is it to be in the WWE, or is it to be a big time pro wrestler? Because you don't, there's one way obviously provides a much quicker path to the other, but it's not the only path.
Yeah. And that one person is probably not going anywhere in WWE. So you've created a much better thing here on your own.
Sure. And, and what I realized was, if that's the case, and of course no one will confirm or deny, right? Like everyone just went, I don't know.
We can all speculate, though.
Sure. But here's the thing: if that is the case, then what would happen if I did go? It wouldn't make any difference even if I did go, because it would still be problematic. So it's just like, all right, cool. I'll go over here and make a big deal. Make a big deal of something else.
When you were kind of in that limbo period before everything happened with NWA, what was the plan?
Well, like I said, I had started talking to James about, doing some, because Marty was a bit inspiration, you know what I mean? Because for so many years, he'd been sort of struggling and toiling and trying to get something to work for himself.
He's also the overrated, underrated guy.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then suddenly, you know, the villain hits, and it's like, and he's off to the races, and it's like Bullet Club, and you know, and he's a hot property, right? And so there was some very, very early kind of talks with Ring of Honor and like different, you know, but it was like I knew that I had to find, like, I needed a reinvention, you know what I mean? I needed to sort of reestablish shows, because everyone's memory was just this product of TNA.
Yeah.
You know, like they had never really seen Nick Aldis. You know, they had seen
Magnus.
My entire TNA career is a struggle of me trying to do me, and whoever was in charge at the time trying to say, no, you're this guy. This is what you are. You know, and so I'd always find somewhere in the middle, and it didn't work. You know, and it's like, even was the world champion, it was just like, you know, and then like once I suddenly went, well, I can do what I want. Okay, cool. Like you can shape the character.
Yeah.
Like that. That's what I tell young guys now. Like it's progressed just in the span of my career. It's progressed from, you used to send a promo picture, you know, by email. Then it was like, then you had to send a promo picture and a link to a YouTube, you know, maybe a YouTube link or a video of a match.
Yeah.
Now you got to produce vignettes, you know, like if you're going to stand out, you know, if you're going to get booked and, you know, you're going to make an impression, like now you've got to like produce, you know, you've got to like be a producer and director, like Ricky Starks, perfect example. I happened to see somebody retweet, you know, like his 1-800 Starks line vignettes, and I just took one look and went, sent it straight to Dave and Billy and went, I don't know if this guy, I don't know anything about this guy, but I can make a pretty safe bet that if he's willing to invest that much in himself, he's good.
So you were the guy that put Ricky Starks in there? Ear.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So I came across the vignette on Twitter and went, that guy's money.
But this is the world we live in now. There's no gatekeepers anymore.
Mm-mm.
You know, we don't have to have a vignette produced by NWA or Impact or WWE. You can go out with your phone and some decent editing software and do what Ricky's doing.
Yeah. You know, we're independent contractors, which, you know, we can discuss the merits or drawbacks of that till the cows come home.
Yeah.
But the one thing you have to say is that you are an entrepreneur, right? And if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have to be good at everything. I'm not a good editor, but I am a good producer. I can see in my mind's eye what I want something to look and feel like. But I don't have the technical skills, but I'll just find someone who does.
Right, and then double down on your strengths.
Sure.
Which makes perfect sense.
Right. And it's just like, you know, just you need a team. You know, it's all of this, you know, the power, you know, the success we've had. It's a team. It's understanding, like, these are his strengths, these are his weaknesses. Like, you know, this will set him off, this won't set him off. You know, and all this kind of thing. It's understanding personalities too, and it's navigating the whole thing. I always say that. I think the reason why, for the most part, our booking or creative, whatever we want to call it, is consistent and solid is because there's like a three-headed monster here. There's Billy, who's very creative and very artistic, with, you know, very sort of out of the box. I mean, look at his life and career. It's like, absolutely, you know, that's his world, right? And then there's Dave, who's very television oriented, very much on like new media, very, very on the pulse of like what certain things need to be covered in order to get eyeballs on it and get attention, and obviously his own writing and creative background. And he kind of leans a little bit more towards like shtick, you know, and slapstick kind of funny kind of stuff a little bit. And then there's me with the very serious like wrestling, you know, booking 101 and the very like prize fight approach, promoting sort of style. So those three influences sort of shape the overall variety of the show.
Does that mean you have a job, like a behind the scenes job?
Not officially.
Okay.
You know, like I'm not officially, you know, but I mean, because we're a small team, you know, we're a start, but obviously, considering the fact that the entire thing was sort of based off of a show about me, like obviously I'm kind of involved in the process.
Right.
And then when it comes to this stuff, it's like, it's just a discussion. And I'm not the only one, but I'm trusted because of my position. I'm all in.
Yeah. What parts of Magnus did you have to drop to become Nick Aldis?
I don't know really. I don't think it was a case of dropping stuff. I think it was a case of allowing the rest of my stuff in, because I felt like there was, and a lot of it, some of it's just experience too. It's just being green, but it was like learning to relax and everything. But I think I don't know. I just think that for me to thrive and succeed, I needed to be authentic, right? I needed to feel like it was me talking, right, because I feel like my own personality is so sort of strong that it influences anything I would do. But I just always felt like, well, I'm not me. I'm playing a part. I'm playing someone else. You know what I mean? And it just didn't. And I think that when you back and look at it, it's like I see a guy who just is. In black and white. He's not fully in color yet. Okay. It's because he's just trying to stay within all these boxes and parameters and stuff. And once I just kind of went, well, I'll just do me. Let's just see what happens.
Right. What was it exactly that didn't work out the first time in TNA? Why did you leave?
Well, the reality is that when you get to that point in a business, in a company, that if you're a top talent, you have to have a good relationship with the office, with the boss. Sure. And my relationship with John Gaburik just unfortunately deteriorated. You know what I mean? It just was like, it was just an unfortunate set of circumstances. They decided to sort of take a punt, right, with me almost, at the same time that AJ was leaving, and they couldn't get the deal done, and they, and that was at the time just felt like a huge loss. It felt like a real sort of spiritual part of the NWA had kind of been ripped away. I'm sorry, the NWA of TNA, and it then became, I became like the poster boy for this dark period, and I could feel it instantly, but I wasn't mature enough to know how to deal with that. Right. So I, instead of kind of being like, all right, what should we do? Like, how do we do this? I just started kind of blaming everyone, and so I take full ownership of the deterioration of the relationship, because I didn't know how, because I was put in this really difficult position with no experience of how to deal with that, and no one to help. And I'll tell you the other thing. At the time, it was like, I just remember certain top talents. I just remember seeing for the first time, like, oh, here's what time it is, because suddenly all these guys who 2 years ago or a year ago had been like helping me out with this and that, or giving me, suddenly they're all just kind of like, oh hey, oh, wow. And then and then I would hear him around the corner like, and I'd think like, wow, here's what time it is, and again, I don't have the patience, and I was too young and immature to know how to deal with that. I was 27, I was just, and so I just started like, I was too reactive, and this is people, all the guys who were my friends in TNA at the time. They could vouch for this, but I was telling them when I was the champion there, like, I'm out of here when my contract's up. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm finished.
As the champion.
I was the world champion, and I was going, I'm out of here when my contract's up. I'm done. I had like I basically had a no-cut contract. At the time, like I had basically they could only terminate it if I breached contract. So I knew I was, I knew I was sort of safe, but like. Once I saw, like, I was like, all that's going to happen here is, it's just, my value is just going to continue to slip. So I was saying then, like, I'm out of here. Like, I'll just go figure something else out.
And unfortunately, that seems to be the story with a lot of people in Impact or TNA at that time. Just like, I guess it's a management thing. I don't know.
you know, he came in and, you know, managed to get the position somehow. And then when he left, he just went right back to WWE. So what does that tell you? I don't know. Like, who knows, man? I just remember it was just it was such a mess there by then. It would just become the energy was all wrong. You know, it would just become really toxic.
But that is the place that you met Mickie.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that's obviously
that feels like a lifetime ago. You know, like
that
TNA. But that was the other thing about TNA. It was like every year it felt like a different place because they would bring in because it was never they wouldn't change. They would do is change who was like in charge of creative or the sort of the next top person under Dixie, the owner, right? It was always like, okay, now Bruce Pritchard's in charge, now Eric Bischoff is in charge, now John Gaburik is in charge, you know, whatever. And all the other people were the same.
Right.
And it's like, that's the problem, guys. Like, it's the rest of it's like the guys who aren't pulling their weight promoting the live events, and it's like this guy and that, you know, and it was a mixture of people who were just trying to get a payday versus and a bunch of lifers who were just like, it's an easy gig, like go along to get along, you know what I mean? Like and then there's the talent going, like,
right.
We've got a live event with Jeff Hardy and Kurt Angle on it. Why is there 300 people here?
I was such a huge
you know what I mean?
TNA fan. No, I get it. Like
that roster.
Yeah.
The TNA roster in like 2012, 2013.
Oh my God! So you Samoa Joe, Sting, Hulk Hogan,
AJ Styles, like Kurt, like
you.
Oh my God! Like you Bobby Roode. You can't turn your head without finding like a top level talent. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the moment when you and Mickie, obviously you met backstage, I'm guessing, but when was the moment where you went, she's pretty cool?
Not too I don't want to get too personal and mushy here, but obviously I knew who she was and I'd seen her on TV and everything, and obviously identified like, oh yeah, you know. But
yes, she's a very attractive woman. Yes.
Sure. But then when I saw her in person, it was just totally different. You know, it was like I was sitting there and she walked past and I just kind of forgot what the hell I was doing. You know what I mean? And Doug Williams was sat with me and he was just like, put your tongue back in your mouth. and it just, fortunately, it was just one of those chemistry things. Like because then she kind of noticed me. And so this is a funny story. I had to go do some promo pictures at TNA, and the way it was set up then was like Lee South would do the photos, and he would be in the back end of the impact zone, so you'd have to walk through the impact zone to get to the thing. So I put my trunks on, but like pretty much just had like my trunks on and my like running shoes, because it was just going to be like waist up shots, right? So I walk. So they're all it's early in the day. So and Mickie and Lisa were in the ring like with Al Snow, kind of like going over some of their stuff. And I was like walking around the ring, and I just, you know, Mickey's not subtle, like she's loud, you know. So and I just heard her. I get sort of to the point where she obviously thought I was out of earshot, and she goes, "I'm a looking and I'm a lacking," and I just like stopped and turned like. And I remember she obviously then she was like, oh my God, you know. But then my favorite was just look at Al Snow, because Al was just like, you know, just like, oh my God. Well, we'll never hear the end of it now, you know. And so it was kind of like, after that, it was just kind of like, hey, so, you know.
I love that you bring your son with you. So I saw you at the big event in New York.
Yeah.
And your son was with you there. He's with you here today.
Yeah.
Does he come with you all the time?
Not all the time, you know, but he comes to these tapings, you know, for now. He's come to every single one. And it was, you know, some of the guys were talking to me about it, and they said it almost feel weird if he wasn't here now, you know, like as soon as I got it, like everyone says, is Donovan here, you know? And I'm like, yeah, he's here. You know, you hear him before you see him.
He's a bigger star than you now.
100%, you know, story of my life. But like, he's I look at it as like, people ask us all the time, obviously, oh, is he going to get in the business? I'm like, who the hell knows? He's 5, you know what I mean? But I just think of it as, I like him being around. He first of all, he's happy. He likes it here. So that's the most important thing, right? Like if he was miserable, like I wouldn't drag him to this. I would just get the nanny. But he likes coming. They obviously the folks at GPB are phenomenal. It's such a great partner for us. And, you know, the company, again, given my sort of position, you know, they make some nice concessions for me. And one of them is that, you know, we have a nice little room set up for him. And, you know, because they understand that because of Mickey's, you know, Dave's worked for WWE, right? So he understands that it's like, it ain't as easy to just drag him to that.
Is so he's not as welcome at WWE?
No, he's not welcome. I want to make that clear. He's been, and like from what I've heard, like Stephanie's great with him, and, you know, like he's been on this, he goes running down the ramp and he's on the set, you know, and all that stuff. But, you know, it's not as easy to, you can't do it all the time, right? Sure. Like it's, you know, it would become a thing, right? So, well, and just the travel, you know, it's like they're going, you know, all over the place. So with here, it's like, but I like the idea of, for now, he's getting to be around this energy, because the energy here is great. You've been here for a day now, like you see it and you feel it. It's like the energy here is so positive and so like, just it's just fostering this, like this mentality of like, it can be done. Like, let's go out there and crush it. Yeah. And I mean, 100%, this is the most passion I've ever had for the business. And I'm 15 years in. So whether he decides he wants to be a wrestler one day or not, or whether he decides he wants to be a botanist, you know what I mean? It's like, I like the idea that he just gets to be around me at my most passionate and engaged, so that he can understand that's, you know, that's what being a professional is. Like that's sort of like, I just think that I'm a big believer that your environment really sort of helps you out in that regard for the rest of your life.
Which is why I would think that in 10 years, he'll start to be like, Dad, I want to do what you're doing.
Maybe.
Or he could go the complete opposite way and be like,
well, yeah. Well, look, my father was a rugby player, but he was also a very well regarded plant breeder, like plant breeding scientist.
That's why you said botanist.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't just a random profession.
Random. But like, you know, my dad used to take me to work with him because I used to love, like, oh, cool, like big, like combine harvesters and tractors and this and that. But he was like the boss, you know, he was sitting there, he was in an office most of the time, but he would go out in the field with the guys, and, you know, because he loved, like, because basically his specialty was barley breeding. So obviously there's a big, you know, very big commercial implications for that, you know. Sure. So he'd be sought after. He'd have to go to Australia for, you know, and this and that to basically figure out like when to plant and like what, you know, what soil and all this kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I became a pro wrestler, you know, like, you know, it wasn't like you know, it's just whatever speaks to you. But obviously I felt like I was brought up in a good environment, you know, to sort of foster the idea that, like, you know, approach things with professionalism and with you know, engage your brain and really think about it and get involved and get stuck in. And when I told my dad I wanted to be a wrestler, like my mom was like, "What? No, please don't do that." You know, whatever. My dad was just like, "All right, do it, but just approach it professionally. Approach it like a professional."
Right. When you talk to your family back home, do they think you've lost your accent?
Yeah.
Because to us, you still sound like...
They don't talk about it, but I know that it's there. I get it from fans all the time, like, "What happened to your accent?" "Oh, sorry, I've been here for like the majority of my adult life." Like,
you still sound very British to the rest of us.
I think
that don't live in the UK.
Well, and Donovan's probably going to end up with the same accent, you know.
Oh, you think?
Well, because but when you're a kid, you know, you just repeat what you hear. So so I know I still say certain things with a British accent, but then there are certain things I say with an American accent. I know they have like an American inflection, but because I've been here so long, you just get used to the ebb and flow of conversation. And as you can tell, I'm a very conversation-oriented person.
I love it.
Like, I'm very vocal, you know what I mean? I'm like very verbal, you know, in my energy. So it's like...
Has he started school yet?
No.
Because that's where he'll
He did. Well, so he was in pre-K. He's a September birthday.
Okay.
So
he'll be the oldest kid in the
yeah.
class.
So it was kind of one of those things where we went, do we want him to be the youngest in his class or the oldest? And we said, let's have him be the oldest. And it also meant that for a year, it's like he still goes to different daycare stuff and things to to help sort of nurture him and obviously keep him stimulated and make sure he's up to date on stuff. And I do a lot with him, like we do ABC Mouse, and he has his like phonics books and stuff with him today. But we just decided like, well, for a year, let's let him sort of just be around the stuff like this and like get some cool life experiences that you can't, because once he's in school it's like he's going to be in school, and so we just sort of made that decision that let's kind of hippie it for a year.
He might have like a Tennessee accent if he's going to school in Tennessee.
I don't know.
You guys live.
Who the hell knows?
Is there someone that you'd like you to challenge for this belt? Is there someone that you can't wait to have a match with?
There are several, honestly. I mean, I know that I've said this before. I've always felt like, to me, like the ultimate sort of culmination of this journey and given this sort of historical context of all of it and stuff would be Triple H.
Sure. Wow.
At Starrcade. You know what I mean? Like, here's a guy who clearly, especially if you go back and look at his stuff in the early 2000s, clearly was trying to replicate the feel and the presence and the aura of Harley Race and Ric Flair and Dory Funk Jr. and Jack Briscoe and guys like that. And he achieved it very well for a while. He's reinvented himself several times. He's had different incarnations of his persona. But that period, it was like, you could tell he was like, this is what I wanted to be my whole life. He wanted, and he had Flair with him, and it's like
evolution, yeah.
And so, I've heard through the grapevine that he has a replica of the 10 pounds of gold in a case in his office. I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard that, and it's like, clearly he holds holds this in high esteem. And, and again, I know that it might seem that there's this sort of weird, like, bitterness or energy between, negativity with me and WWE. I have nothing but love for those guys, right? Like, they have been very good to us, actually. Like, there's quite a steady communication between the NWA and WWE.
Oh, okay.
Like, about various different things. And it's like, and it's very kind of positive. And again, like I say, like if I go to stuff, with Mickie or whatever, it's like everybody there is cool, and everyone's watching the stuff, like,
of course.
I mean, man, like, just when things are going good when guys who like Edge are happy to say it publicly, you know what I mean? Because he's said some very nice things to me privately, but publicly he's endorsed the show. So it's kind of like, that means that he's not only enjoying the show enough that he wants to help, but it's also that he feels that the opinion is safe enough where people aren't going to go, that bullshit, that's terrible, you know what I mean? Like, he's not, and that's a real thing. And I know that I'm not suggesting that he really cares that much about like getting, trolled or whatever, but it's like, but I understand the mentality of it. It's like, it's kind of, if he kind of knew if he puts the NWA, he's not going to get any blowback for that. So and like that, and that's where we know we've hit the sweet spot. I always joke that I'm the only person who's been able to unite the opinions of Jim Cornette, Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff, because they all philosophically like completely disagree. Meltzer, Wade Keller, like. But they all like the show. They all, and they're all digging what I'm doing. So it's like, that's, again, you take everyone's opinion with a pinch of salt, but if you're able to unite all these different schools of thought, then that's what we're looking to do.
I really wonder if this match with Triple H could happen.
Why couldn't it?
The only reason
people
it couldn't,
didn't think me and Cody could happen because Cody's in Ring of Honor. What he's like, well, that doesn't work, me and Marty, they was like, well, how's that going to work? Of course it can happen.
I think the only reason it couldn't happen is because WWE doesn't have these kinds of agreements with other companies. That's the only reason.
The thing is, it doesn't really need to be. It's not like they have to work out some sort of long-term, huge sort of set in stone agreement. It's just let's make a prize fight. You know what I mean?
Would it happen here in NWA or would it happen in WWE?
For me, I always envisioned that it would be Starrcade. If we were gonna, they own Starrcade, they own the IP or whatever, and it's like, I've seen the last couple and kind of thought, that ain't Starrcade. Yeah.
Not without this.
Right. It's like what about what makes this? How is this Starrcade?
Well, it's just the name of another pay-per-view.
Right. How is this? It's not even a pay-per-view. They didn't even do a pay-per-view last time. And I was like, how is this Starrcade? And again, I'm not, whatever, right? Like they're free to do whatever they want with it. But it's like, do you not think there's an opportunity there to make it really cool and special? I don't know.
Well, we're putting it out into the ether now.
I've said it before.
It's out into the world.
Yeah.
Well, it's out.
It's probably having the opposite effect, but who cares?
I should have pointed this out at the start of the interview, but look, I'm a normal-sized human, and look how.
You're pretty. You're getting.
Thank you. I've worked out a few times before, but look at the size of you're just so significantly wider than me. Yes.
I like one of the funny things that I've seen a lot of feedback recently, and again, I think it's just based on what the majority of the sort of fare is in wrestling now, as far as sort of performers, is like a lot of people they like the fact that like you're just like big and meaty guy.
You are, because you have a very different build than you had when you were in TNA.
Sure.
This is the old school.
A wrestler.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you told me, if I watched a clip of your match and said, "Oh, that was from 1983," I'd go, "Oh, yeah, I'd believe it."
Right. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I love bodybuilding, and I love lifting weights, but at the same time, I'm also at a point in my life where I'm kind of going, I don't care if I have abs. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want. If they're there, great. If they're not, great. Like,
is that
whatever.
for you'd rather eat?
I'd rather enjoy my life. And enjoy things in moderation, and just be and don't get me wrong, every now and then I might kind of go, ooh, we're a little soft, we might have to tighten things up for a few weeks,
right?
But I've been through phases with TNA. I went through phases where I would be like, okay, I'm gonna get really ripped, and then I would get really ripped and lean. And then I would look, and it didn't come across on TV. It's like, 'cause big works better on TV, right? I just wanted to have sort of all I want is like some, fullness is the best way to describe it. Like good, like fullness, like rounded musculature, right?
What do you weigh as you sit here right now?
250.
Oh my God! And what size suit is this?
It's custom made, man.
Probably okay.
Specially tailored for Nick H. Aldis.
That's embroidered on the inside. Yeah. All my suits are custom too, but I put ridiculous phrases on the inside.
Did we try to do something in Miami?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where I was living.
So Miami, that's actually the guy. There's a guy in Miami, Nazir.
Oh yeah.
He's making my stuff now. I'll show you the jacket downstairs.
Please.
Oh, it's amazing. Like, he reached out to me based on he'd seen the show, and was like, I have a red suit, like a red sort of plaid suit, and I rocked it one day on one of the episodes of Powerrr, and he messaged me on Instagram and was like, this is a killer look. He's like, I'm a tailor, like we have this same fabric actually, like that's what caught my eye, and blah blah blah. And then he was like, I want to make, I'd love to make you a suit, like, and I sent him all my measurements, and like I took some pictures just wearing like a loose fitting shirt and everything, like at his request. And this suit came, and I kept thinking to myself, how good is it really going to be, like having not met this guy in person? And I swear to God, this thing just like fell on. I mean, it just was like magic, and I just went, wow. Like, and he's fantastic.
I could never go back to a suit off the rack now. Custom suits
can't do it.
They completely change everything.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for making the time to do this.
Oh, no, thank you.
I think we've been talking about this for exactly 1 year.
Yeah. Yeah.
I interviewed Mickie at the Royal Rumble last year.
That's right.
In
And then
Phoenix.
she texted me and said, "Hey, Chris Van Vliet wants to." I said, "Great, cool, yeah." Like, because I'd seen that you were starting to build some momentum and get some, and building some great numbers, and I was like, "Cool, that would be great." Like, that would really help us out, because I'd been doing like Sam Roberts and Busted Open have been great to us, and all, a few other good sort of big players in the wrestling media. And I was like, this guy's getting hot. Like, that'd be great. And then we just kept sort of missing each other and not being able to make it happen.
It was just like we were never in the same place at the same time to make it happen. Except when I saw you in New York, I'm like, okay, we're gonna make this happen.
Oh yeah.
Because that was like 2 months ago. I saw you at the big event, and I'm like,
but I had to in and out.
Yeah, you were walking by. You're like, we're gonna do an interview sometime. I'm like, I know we are.
I had Donovan with me that day because I had been in England. And that's why he was with me, because we'd been in England, and just the way that it had worked. I basically that kind of booked kind of last minute, and so I already had these other travel plans. So I went, okay, I can do it, but I'll have to come straight from England, and I'll have to have Donovan with me, and ideally I'd like to fly out that night, so I can get home, because I've been gone for like 2 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
And that's why he was with me.
The line that you had though for photos and autographs was huge, and I imagine that ever since Powerrr started, you started to see that ramp up.
There was the metrics are quite obvious. Yeah, like I used to notice how long Marty's line was, at different stuff, right? And I would think like, man, that's really impressive. Like, and mine would be okay, it'd be the same as everyone else's, like, a few deep. And then at the big event, it was like me and Marty had the longest lines.
Yeah.
It was like, yes,
yeah,
cool. You know what I mean? Yeah. I signed solid for 3 hours solid. I didn't no stops. Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, can I hold this?
Absolutely.
What? Oh my goodness, that feels like it weighs about 10 pounds.
I think it's more than 10 pounds. I think maybe the metal is 10 pounds. And then the leather adds some more. But
this is incredible.
I'll tell you what. From day one with the NWA.
This is my country, so great.
I know we need a UK plate on there. I had the TNA World Championship, and obviously like when I would go back to England, like my niece and nephew and stuff would be like, oh cool, the belt, whatever. But this one is the only belt I've ever had that adults are like, do you have the belt with you? Can I? Like guys in the dressing room,
Of
what I mean?
course.
Can I, because it's an iconic thing. Like, that's an asset. Like we joke about, like, that's the asset. Like, it's one of the main assets of the company.
And somehow I'm holding it right now. So I will give it back to your very safe and capable hands. And I just want to thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you, man.
I appreciate you. And keep doing what you're doing. It's been so amazing to watch this grow.
We're just getting started.
Well, there you go. That's interview number 1 of 6 that I did here in Atlanta for NWA. I was here for Hard Times and also for one of the tapings for Powerrr. And let me tell you, if you can get down here to Atlanta, if you live in the area or if you want to travel here, it's well worth it to check out what NWA has going on. The intimate studio setting. So cool. And how cool is Nick Aldis? I feel like we could have talked for like 7 hours, but he had to obviously get to work and couldn't just hang out with me the whole time. But what a guy, what a champion. I'm super excited to see what NWA has in store for 2020. And you should be excited about the interviews that I have in store from here in Atlanta and also the rest of 2020. Also, I have my hood on because, number one, I haven't styled my hair yet. And it's also 7 in the morning so this isn't so bad, just a little spikiness. It's also 7 in the morning as I begin my 8-hour drive back home. Well worth the 8-hour drive, because one of the most requested interviews here at NWA was question mark. And oh yes, I did an interview with the question mark. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that interview or any of the other interviews that I have from here in Atlanta or any interviews in general that I have.